Wade, welcome to the Kriegsspiel Umpire Chat Show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to talk to you. You have so much going on. I'm just going to sit back and let you go because really you've got some terrific projects going on.
Yeah.
But just lead off. Tell us, how did you find the IKS? Because you come with a lot of skills that I think everyone's going to be very interested in. But how did you find us?
I think I just stumbled upon like
Yeah.
the YouTube page, and then that sent me down a rabbit hole. And Kriegspiel kind of caught my attention because of the double blind aspect of the game, and I was getting tired of like your more traditional war games and the
Sure.
gaminess of them, right? And so I liked that it kind of blended uh, a narrative, a reasonable narrative behind the numbers, and the numbers are relatively simple, and it's more about positioning and strategy and communication rather than min maxing your stats and stuff. So yeah, I think that's probably how I found the community for sure.
Okay. And then what type of war games have you played before? Where did you come from?
Yeah, so I am 26,
Hmm.
and I come from a background like what originally got me. I've always been obsessed with like militaria. I had like a giant ammo case as a little kid growing up that was just full of green and yellow army men,
Right on.
and so it's just been a thing. And but what got me really into it, like at a novice or professional level, is paintball. So when I was like
Paintball.
12 or
That's
13, yeah.
amazing. Talk about that. Yeah.
So near us, so in Wyandotte, Oklahoma, there was a paintball event. It was an annual thing that was at one point the largest paintball event in the world, and it was a week long event. And so you would arrive on Monday and you would camp in your divisions
No.
uh, until Saturday. And then on Saturday, there would be one giant 8 hour long paintball game. There's games every day,
Right.
but there's one giant one on Saturday where it's all the beans. And it had a full chain of command from top to bottom. I can send you some footage of some of the like when it was big,
Yeah.
uh, and it was crazy. Like they said that the command and control for both sides could rival some third world countries.
There
like
you go.
like a lot of the people who come are ex-military, but not like it's not like overwhelmingly so. You know, there's a good spread of people. It was a very diverse event. People would travel from everywhere. The players, it would be 4,000 players over 1,200 acres. Uh,
No.
and so, as a little military obsessed kid, when I found this on Google, I was like, this is 40 minutes away. We got to go. And so, it also coincided with my birthday. And so, the
Right.
entire thing is D Day themed. And so, it happens in the second week of June, or it used to. It has since stopped, but we'll talk about that later. Uh, but as a kid, I just started going to that, and I had never played paintball before, but I decided my first paintball experience is going to be the largest game ever played. and
Right. You went right in the deep end. I love it.
as like a 12-year-old kid, it was like it did feel like you were in Saving Private Ryan. Like on our part of
Yeah.
the field, I signed up for the first division, and it landed on Omaha Beach. And what they had was, and you'll see this. It's like when you Google the event, it was like one of the main sort of features. But they built a mock Higgins boat on top of a pontoon boat, very redneck, but also like
Hey.
fun, really fun.
Yeah.
And they would pull it across a pond
No kidding.
and then drop the ramp, and you would run off the end and then get
Yeah.
riddled
Now.
with paintballs. Our
Well, I
division,
tell you what, we really have to up our game in the Creeksville community because we're gonna have to get like a life-size Creeksville blocks. We got to do something because this
right?
is pretty top shelf to have a Higgins boat pulled across the pond.
Yeah. And I think the thing that fascinated me the most about the whole experience as I eventually would rise up the ranks, like I just came as a regular player for like 2 years, and then I volunteered for some stupid mission. And then they were like, okay, you're now, they had like NCO and officer positions, but it wasn't so much like they can boss you around. It was more like these are
Yeah.
people that distribute communication and take care of you and have been around that they can help you if you have questions.
Right.
It's basically some structure to the chaos. But eventually I would come up the ranks, so to speak. But
Uh-huh.
and then that branched out into all kinds of other things, airsoft, and then so the tabletop side, the outside, airsoft and paintball side, it all just sort of married into one giant wargaming special interest.
Yeah, good for you. That is so cool. All right, so this is why I love talking to umpires. Is the feeder path for getting into umpiring? You would think it'd be very um, kind of similar, but paintball is a fantastic way to go. So you found us and you got into, but you came in with knowledge of, you've been playing with different platforms, and talk a little bit about the different platforms and where you get that knowledge. Is that self-taught, or how did that work?
So my day job is I'm a computer programmer, or I
Okay,
was. Now I'm a
that
project
explains a lot.
Yeah, so I was, and my whole world was JavaScript and HTML
Yeah,
and Foundry. I knew about for like Dungeons and Dragons and Dark
yeah,
Heresy, other role playing games, and I knew it was like super duper. I knew Foundry was super duper versatile as a platform,
right.
and so I was just like, I also kind of knew it already, and I didn't want to have to learn Tabletop Simulator, so there was
Fair
an
enough.
amount of laziness there. Uh,
Sure.
but yeah, that's Foundry's been the main platform that I'm using lately, and I've ran a couple games in it, and the last two have really been the most interesting, I would say, and successful.
Talk
But
about that. What is it? What does Foundry bring to the table? Literally, that helps you make a differentiated game.
right, so one thing is it's not 3D, so it is an entirely like 2D. You can make it 3D with like an extension, but it is 2D, so your performance is much better. Like your computer doesn't have to render so much stuff, uh,
Okay,
but you do
that's really
lose.
interesting because a lot of people have trouble with tabletop simulator because of issues with the amount of memory and the amount of processing power that it takes up.
Yeah, but the big feature that you lose is that 3D perspective of being able to, as an umpire, take
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
horizontal, or you can you're less you're more restrictive in that sense. But so it's easier to run, and then if one person has a license, you can host an instance of the game on your own computer, and basically, or you can have it hosted on some server and it's up 24/7. But if you have a team of umpires, they can just log in and process turns like asynchronously, and it can just be always online, just or at call, like. And so that's also pretty cool. I don't collaborate too much because I'm so busy in the professional day to day that
Sure.
I don't have a lot of time for that. I keep my scope really small.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if a group was looking for something like that, it is a good solution, I think.
Now you've created a lot of functionality. You burst onto the scene. You were doing um, distance calculators and fog of war. You were just putting all sorts of amazing things from Foundry. What have you found has been the most effective tools that you've built in Foundry that you wouldn't find in Tabletop Simulator?
Yeah, so the scripting, I'm sure you can do a lot of the same scripting stuff in Tabletop Simulator,
Huh?
but the way that Foundry handles it is just a little bit different. Like you can approach it a lot more programmatically and like build out almost like a little web application, you can build out your own little, calculators and things like that, but you can also just run simple macros. And so I found I needed to save some time in processing, and I didn't want to like using the ruler and doing like it. I know it like fudge is the game, but even fudging like is kind of hard sometimes to do quickly to really do justice to the game. And so yeah, I was like, I wonder if I can basically take Chief's um, combat system from his On to Richmond and um, make a series of scripts that handles the combat for that. So like you could select how many units are involved, the like condition of each unit, and really automate some of that. So all I had to do was like drag select and then press the button, hit a few check boxes, and then it spits out some numbers, and then it's at least a starting point that is kind of reasonable, and I can fudge from there. And it saved a lot of time. The
Got
other
it.
thing is the fog of war is really good.
I've seen some of your demonstration screenshots of that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah, fog of war is really good in Foundry. Like you have a lot of different settings, and there's modules that you can add that adds even more. But it's really easy to just say this unit can see 2 miles, and then when you click the unit as an umpire, it shows you what that unit's perspective is.
Yeah, right.
And so it's super quick. Like you can just, and then if you've got like obstacles like smoke or whatever, you can just draw like a quick little terrain wall. Like if you got a cloud of smoke, you just draw a terrain wall through the center of the cloud, and then when you click the token through the unit, he can't see through the cloud.
Now, did Foundry grow out of wargaming? Because it seems like with the 2D perspective, like what was its intention? Because Tabletop Simulator, I think, is very much trying to let you play poker together, right? Things like that. Do you know where Foundry's original intention was? It sounds like wargaming.
It actually wasn't. If you look up like Foundry wargaming, there's a very minimal engagement around that. What it actually started as was, and still largely is a tabletop role playing platform.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and so its biggest thing is it has lots of user created systems and content, and so you can find some super niche, role playing game. But there's also like there's a BattleTech. I think there's a BattleTech module, and so there's a little bit of like tabletop wargaming, but it's not very.
It came from the role playing world. That's super interesting. Okay, I got it. And have you done any tabletop simulator at all, or you've gone right in on 100% on Foundry and off you went?
Yeah, just as a sake of time, I had to focus 100% on Foundry. Okay. So yeah, I haven't really used Tabletop Simulator as an umpire, but I've played plenty of games that uses it. So as a player.
Yeah, of course, right. So that's great. So talk about the event. I mean, we have to talk about the event down in Galveston, and run us through kind of the inspiration for that, and tell everybody what happened.
Yeah, for sure. So the group of people, the community that's kind of sprouted up around a lot of the other events that I've done under we call ourselves Mudcrab. Like Mudcrab events, but we have like little subdivisions and Mudcrab this, Mudcrab that. But anyway, we're crazy. We're all unhinged. We're all unhinged nerds who love history.
For umpires at home, Wade and I can actually see each other. So he actually has a Mudcrab T-shirt on with a cool logo. That is a Mudcrab with a little sword, and
the icon is a crab with a beer bottle and a knife.
Right, a beer bottle and a knife. So like a ninja Mudcrab. So just perhaps you can get take an image of that. And we have that be the screen cover for this. So sure. Mudcrab events basically. Does it do the paintball and the other things, or what kind of events do you do with Mudcrab, the Mudcrab group?
So we started with paintball, then we started with paintball, then we got into airsoft, and then at some of our events we started to throw what we were calling pop-up conventions, where we just invite a bunch of like-minded nerds and we play tabletop games, and a lot of them were historic themed, like Civil War themed, and we did that 2 or 3 years. And then about that time I hit the IKS and was like, oh, this is awesome. And we were looking for more things to do with our friends that was history and wargaming related, but did not require the the risk of projectiles like flying at you, right? And so it was like sometimes we want to like relax a little bit. I mean, it's still exciting to play a game of Kriegsspiel, but it's not like hiking 10 miles in a day because you're in a paintball war. It's a lot easier on the body.
Yeah.
But yeah, I forget what the original question was. But
we're just talking about the event. This was the lead up to Galveston.
Right? Okay. Yeah, but so with Galveston, we've just been on the lookout for cool venues in the United States that are history related, specifically museum ships. Like despite living in Missouri, I'm fascinated by big boats and like
Hmm.
naval things, and so I'm aware of about 100 museum ships in the United States alone, and they are struggling on the whole generally for funding to stay in the public, consciousness, especially after COVID. And so they really are cool places that deserve to be remembered and preserved, but
Huh?
no one's really doing anything to engage with them. Like there are some museum ships out there that are doing some really exciting things. Like there's some that they played big airsoft games on them. There's some that they do like spook houses or things like that. But we were like, what if we turn the space into a simulation, like and like
Hmm.
basically make the players uh, make command decisions while standing in the exact place that they would be on the vessel. And we
Yeah.
knew that these places did overnight events, but um, they said that almost exclusively the people who stay the night are Boy Scout troops. And so they haven't really had like we were like the first group of like adults aside from like they've had other like adult parties, but it's not
Yeah.
as common as the kids. Um, and uh, and so they agreed to. I was basically like, can we just come on board the vessels? We want to run the simulator, and then parallel to that, we want to just have open gaming for whatever people want to come and do.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, no, that sounds great. And it just worked out. And we had 10 players come. I messed up in the scheduling. I didn't realize that the date I picked was Easter weekend.
Yeah.
So it would probably have been about a 20-person turnout if I had not fudged that date.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that goes in the Mudcrab lessons learned book.
Yes, and that book is quite funny.
And which ship were you on? Talk about the actual venue.
Yeah, so the venue was the USS Cavalla and the USS Stewart down at the Galveston Naval Museum,
Mhm.
and it's really dope. It's there on the Pelican Island, just off the channel, and the museum is great. It's a very modern facility. Their organization cares a lot about the vessels,
Mhm.
and they do what they can to engage with the community, which is cool. Like they host a lot of like galas and like little events that honor veterans and bring families together, like for different holidays and stuff throughout
Yeah.
the. And so it's a really cool venue, and working with them has also been pretty easy. They're like, wait a second, we don't have to babysit you. Like the chaperone that they left was like, because you're all adults, I'm going to sit here and do paperwork. Uh,
Right.
have fun, and that's how it went. And
So
we
they see you wearing a shirt with with a mud crab on it, with a beer
beer
bottle and a knife, and they say, "Uh oh, we better check in on these guys."
right. No, but despite our outward appearance, we have a pretty as far as like accidents or mishaps go, I think I have a pretty decent track record. But I gotta say, like,
No mishaps.
yeah, mishaps are inevitable, right? Like war is hell. We love saying that when something goes wrong. We're just like, well,
And,
war is hell. But when
and
we're
which of
like
the
out
two
at a
ships? Which of the two ships did they give you, and how did that work in terms of the actual space?
So one is a submarine, and it is
Hmm.
a Gallo class from World War II that served up through the Cold War, and so it is pretty much like original condition inside. It's in great shape, and we couldn't sleep on board the submarine because they need to upgrade their bunks. Which, yeah, but then next to it, so like right next to it, was a destroyer that was
Kidding.
actually built in like 1911. It's like really old, like or
Yeah.
1920, somewhere around there. It's really old. But it served through World War II, and then I think early into the Cold War, and then was obtained by the museum.
Hmm.
And they're cool, very cool pieces of history. The destroyer's in World War II configuration, and the submarine is in its Cold War configuration.
That's so you slept on the destroyer and then played games on the submarine.
Yes,
Okay.
and also on the destroyer at the same time. So we had tables set up in the destroyer in like the crew berthing area, and so we had like a Warhammer table, we had a big Civil War table, we had this and that, And then I also had a little bit of an umpire command center. So they have Wi-Fi at the destroyer, and so I had a laptop connected to the Foundry server, and then I used Starlink. I put Starlink on top of the submarine and ran an Ethernet cable into the control room of the submarine and hooked it to another laptop. And
You
so,
are a Kriegsspiel mad scientist. I love it.
yeah, and then from that laptop, I was able to hook up to the sound. I was able to set up a sound system, and basically, Foundry has support for ambient sounds and triggered sounds and things like that. And
Right.
so, I was able to feed the players like the sounds of what was going on around them, and then I was able to, like, if they were at periscope depth, I could show them an image of what they see. And then if they were, using their radar, like I could give them different inputs basically, but
Yeah.
it was up to them to. I gave them, I don't have one, but I gave them maneuvering sheets, like maneuvering boards, and
Uh-huh.
they were laminated. And basically, each turn, you would update the maneuvering board so that you would have a picture of what's going on around the boat, and it was like part of their like it was part of the game for them to figure out how they run their CIC. So you had
That's
like
great.
one.
So they were running their own maps basically, but you were giving them a lot of ambiance like they were actually in a command center.
Right. And so I ran the destroyer, and the players ran the submarine. And basically, and I was also umpire, so I was God. I could see all the things, but I tried to play it fair.
Yeah.
It was really a staff spiel, by definition. But um, the it was a good time. I can send you some screenshots of like the in state, but funnily enough, so it ended. So we did two runs of it. The first run was the umpire team testing the game, and the second run was all the players who showed up. And it was up to them to organize their CIC, and you could see one or two of them kind of assumed a more of a decision maker role, and then like
Right.
one person's whole job was to monitor the radio, because the radio was also another way that we would feed them information. And then one or two people's entire job was just updating the map every turn, and they like self delegated, and it was really cool.
Huh.
But as they would crash dive, I had like the sound for the hull creaking, and if they dropped depth charges on them, you could hear the depth charges get louder and louder as the destroyer would get closer. It had like ambient sound that would just automatically trigger because it was made for role playing. And
Yeah.
these immersion tools, if you put
And
them in
this is
that,
all coming from Foundry.
yes, yeah, it's all
You were
coming.
piping it through the. And so, what was the underlying scenario or game? Is that something that you designed?
So I literally just so fun fact about the Cavalla is it sank the Japanese aircraft carrier Shokaku on its first war patrol,
Really?
and on its first war patrol, very early even in its war patrol, it sank this aircraft carrier. And so the scenario was just a recreation of that engagement.
No kidding.
Um, and it basically went down like the player group, they fired four torpedoes. All four hit, but only two detonated because I factored in the dud rate. That was the historic data at the time.
Right.
And though the real Cavalla fired more torpedoes in real life, um, the hit rate was about the same, and they sank the Shokaku. And then the destroyers came and depth charged them for several turns, and they deep dived, and basically it was almost a historical turnout. Like it almost organically played out.
So the team on the destroyer and the team on the submarine were basically cooperating in this scenario to recreate the sinking of the Shikaku.
So it was me and the umpire team on the destroyer, and then the players strictly on the submarine.
Got it. Okay.
If that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah, it does. All right, cool. That's amazing. And that good for you. That's terrific. That is well, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, and you were very kind early on before the event. You actually shared with me some of the screens you had and some of the ideas. We brainstormed a little bit through DM, and
Yeah.
I just think it's a huge credit to you that you pulled this off. And how did don't tell any secrets or anything, but economically, how many people would need to come to have this thing be a thing we do again and have more people come?
Yeah. So the mathematically, So
Yeah.
this includes like gas and costs and all that stuff, and then a little bit of per diem for the people, for the organizers and things like that. But
Yeah.
10 people is the break even number, or it's about 12 people really, is the break even number. But the museum requires a reservation of at least 15. So you can have less than 15, but you're paying for 15 one way or the
Okay.
other. And so really, you know, that's how it is. But based off the ticket price and how the players have reacted to the pricing of the event, breaking 12 or 13 is break even, and then 15 is a really good initial goal. But they can sleep up to 37, and we've actually considered trying to partner with the museum to upgrade more of their bunks, because the more people can sleep at the museum, the more players you could have. So
Yeah. And
that's
what was the per person cost if someone was to have gone?
Yeah, so if you registered like really early, there it's like a tiered. So the later you wait, the more the ticket
Yeah.
cost is. But the starting ticket was like 60 or 70 bucks, depending on if you had a
Okay.
um, discount code. But for most of the year, the ticket sits at about $80. But that includes dinner. We did pizza, dinner, refreshments,
Yeah.
snacks, and then a continental breakfast in the morning, plus your accommodations for the night, and you get
Which is
access.
big. I mean, that if you look at these conventions, if you're traveling at all, the accommodations alone is going to run you a very high amount.
Yes, absolutely. And the bunks were, you would think they wouldn't be comfortable, but they were all recently upgraded, and they really do care about that part of the hospitality. Um, and they were really comfortable, actually.
I think this is just really inspiring. And, 15 is a good number of players, say 16, 8 versus 8, even if you did some staff play. You could
Mhm.
have multiple tables, multiple games. If it got a little larger than that, that'd be fine too. You have a mini convention.
Yeah,
This is a really terrific idea. And I'm so happy that it was successful to have 10 people go, even on Easter weekend.
no, absolutely. And so moving forward, I think we're going to try to canvas the various communities. We had two Kriegsspiel player or IKS members drive all the way from Chicago,
Right.
and that was really exciting. We were blown away that they we thought we were going to be the furthest driving. We drove all the way from some people drove all the way from St. Louis in our party, but they
Right.
had to beat. But yeah, we're
Were
going
there
to.
any usernnames that we'd know, or is it a
No, they are relatively new to the community. I still haven't figured out. I just know that they were in the IKS and they
that's
saw
fine.
it through the IKS Discord, and I failed to. I have their email, so I can reach out to them.
That's fine. No, no, I was just more curious. Well, that's great.
James was going to be there. James was going to be there, but I anticipate the reason why he didn't make it is because it was Easter weekend.
He's a family guy for sure, so Easter was tough for him.
Yeah,
But I know James and we were out, went to the California convention and joined Marshall and Damon and the folks out there, and so I know James and I both are big fans of the live format. So I
yeah,
absolutely would figure out a way to get there if it wasn't the holiday. But that's great. So I love that you're coming out of it enthused. In other words, it was enough of a success. They had enough there that you're ready to try another one.
yeah. And I think we're going to canvas the community to figure out what dates work the best. Um, but the idea is, we'll probably keep the name Test Depth and keep it as a in with our paintball events. We like to have one event that is less serious that we use to test things and test
Yeah,
mechanics, and then one game that is like, okay, this is the thing, right? And so what I would like to do eventually is have one game in the or one convention, one test depth in like the spring, and then in the fall do like a more hardcore experience that is centered around the sim. So it's not so much a convention as it is a like space camp for submarine warfare.
yeah, right, right.
And so that's like all these mechanics I hope to eventually translate to that and lock people in the submarine for
Right,
24
right,
hours.
right. Yeah, that's the fun part. And
Yeah,
those bunks suddenly become a little confining when you can't get out of them.
yes, yeah, absolutely.
As Wade has somehow rigged up all the locks on the boat from the destroyer. I can only imagine. That's fantastic. Just thinking about. So, in your paintball world, have you explored like some of the national parks, the land battlefields, like any of the? because Little Wars TV, they do some of these events from the different battlefields. So they were at Vicksburg doing a Vicksburg thing, and I don't know if they were on the National Park Service land, but have you ever looked into anything like that in your Mudcrab adventures?
So we with the paintball, it's harder to get venues because the
Yeah,
splatter that it leaves behind. But
yeah,
with airsoft, it's easier because all you have to do is sweep up BBs. And
right.
so while we haven't played at too many historic venues, we have played at places that are like, for example, the last event that I went to in the airsoft world, I was a staff member. It wasn't one of mine, but it was at Fort Cavazos, Texas, which was Fort
Yeah, yeah.
and the company works with the Marine Corps and makes a donation for the Marine Corps Ball and gets to host an event there that's like two days long. And so we got to play on their mount facility, like on their range, and it was a full Middle Eastern town with a mosque and big several story buildings and blown out tanks and all the crazy cool things that you just can't get anywhere else. It felt like you were in a movie, and
Yeah, right.
that's why people pay to go to those things.
I thought it was really important to have this discussion and share it with the community at large, but the active umpire group, because what you have done is extraordinary, and you should be absolutely recognized for creating. I think you're the first person who's actually created a live event from scratch. I've gone to Origins and I've done that. I've gone and done some live umpiring. I love live umpiring. I'm all in on any sort of event we do. I know that there's an event at Monocracy coming up that some folks in Virginia are getting together out there on the battlefield. I think that's going to be more of a staff walk. I don't have the details of it,
Mhm.
but I think getting together in person and doing more of this, especially as our community grows, is a tremendous opportunity to, on the social side, we get to know each other a little bit more and spend time together. So I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and that's kind of why we do it. Like
Yeah,
the entire, the entire reason why I throw events and my friends and I and I have a co-owner who also owns our event company. Who he comes from the airsoft world, I come from the paintball world, but he also feels the same way about it. There's something about bringing an experience to the players. Like there's something about, especially if they're kids or like younger, like it's really
sure.
cool to come away from an event and kids like just thrilled about history and thrilled about
Absolutely.
being outside and working together with other humans and being social. It's just I think
That's
it's a
even more important now that everything's so digitized, and I think it's terrific. You're just top shelf. Well done. Well done. Let's switch gears a little bit because I want to hear more. I mean, you're just achievement after achievement. Let's talk about your umpiring a little bit. We like to explore a little bit of your philosophy and
yeah, for sure.
your approach to umpiring. You're good with the Starlink, and you're good. You're good with Foundry. We got that covered. Talk about game systems, rule sets. Kind of what's your approach? You talked about some of your features that you put into Foundry, but what's your approach on creating a rule set, or how do you approach umpiring in general?
So I'm of the opinion that like I don't like to reinvent the wheel, so
Okay.
I just scour for systems that already like work that meet the needs of the scenario. And so I really like Chiefs backend, like Chiefs system.
Okay.
It, it's well written, and yeah, Chief can't say enough positive things about Chief and Chief's work because it's wonderful. Um, but the big thing that I lean on is I like sandboxes. I like giving the players the initiative to really express themselves tactically. Like I've started with tactical events or tactical games, and I've moved on to like strategic and operational more.
Yeah.
But I like saying like we started one the Mudcrab Civil War that we did on. I made a messed up map, messed up version of Damon's map of Maryland
Right.
and called it Krabby Land, and we just confined the players to this and had them do a red versus blue, Baltimore versus DC thing, and
Okay.
it started in like January 1st, and it was like you have no men, you basically had to start from the ground up and gather arms and figure out your logistics and like all get through the winter and then the spring
Right.
comes. It was a sandbox from the beginning, and though it takes a long time to really get to something interesting at times. Like I know that's the biggest thing as an umpire is keeping the players engaged.
Right.
Um, but if you've got a good group and there's enough of the day to day, like if each week has something interesting, that's all that's important. It doesn't always have to be combat. You could hit them with other problems of the era, like
So
camp.
is that sandbox operational with constraints already, or is it more almost a real time strategy approach where they're creating their own resources and things like that?
So I give them a few basic things. So super
Mhm.
simple economy. It's like you got guns, you got food, you got wagons to put it in. It's not like it does not get lost in minutia. It's very like very simple, very basic. But since everything's crab themed, like uh, it reminds people not to take it too seriously. But
Right.
where it matters, it is a proper simulation and a proper sandbox. But they have those things, and then they have like a couple starting resources like factories in certain
Right.
locations that generate production that they can say, I want this factory to build
Yeah.
rifles, I want this factory to build this, and then I run a script every turn. Like I basically I see their orders and I punch them into the little table and I run the script, and then it tells me what the next turn's like resource use was, like how many they spend and how many they have left. And so it was really easy to automate because I'm really bad at math. And it was in the sim itself. So it wasn't like an Excel
Yeah.
sheet that you had to reference outside of Tabletop Simulator. It was right like built into the table.
So how much of Chief system are you using, and how much did you modify it for your purposes?
Yeah, so the econ system I came up with myself, and
Okay.
then the combat system is almost entirely Chiefs
Okay.
with just a little bit of
Just
flavor.
run us through that, just because I don't think we've covered Chief's combat system just yet. Just run us through the basics of that system, just for the umpire community to hear about it.
Yeah, so it's based on, I think the original test game was onto Richmond, and so I think that's the name for the
Hmm.
system as a whole. But it breaks the turns out into like 4 hour. You can do 4 hour turns basically in game turns. So you've got
Okay.
like 4 hour chunks. But then it still allows for time compression and stuff if nothing interesting is happening, of course. And uh, I did mine. I did my game at week intervals. Like each turn was 1 week because it was at a
Mhm.
much grander scale. My most recent game, that is. And so I basically just like I made calculators that took Chiefs like marching rules, for example, and
Right.
then multiplied it by the necessary amount of days. And then also I had a weather API that I would get data, like I would get the weather for the day, like really detailed weather,
Hmm.
um, and apply that to basically all the movement rules too were Chiefs, and he's got really good straggling rules and
Yeah.
things like that as well. Like it's very well thought out and has a reference for just about anything you might need to figure out as an umpire in the American Civil War setting.
So if we were to take a camera and kind of film, or take a stream of you doing your resolutions, you're really taking in the player information and using a lot of different tools to calculate things.
Yeah, and I can bust out a screen share sometime if it's helpful for the community and show off what's going on behind Foundry. Um,
And
but
it's
yeah,
all inside Foundry, just to add to that. So all these
yeah,
different tools and APIs that you're creating,
yeah,
or APIs you're using. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
That's cool. And so when you actually deliver the resolution, what are you looking? So you sit down to say, Commander Smith, this is what happened to Commander Smith in that turn. How do you actually pull that together to sit and put fingers on keyboard to write it? Or,
So but what I've been doing toward the end of my most recent game that I found worked the best for me was I will take the, I will literally take a, I will literally take a screenshot
Mhm.
of the player's orders and copy them into Foundry. They have a drag. It's a really cool feature
Mhm.
where you can just drag things in or paste things in instantly. And I will put their orders for the turn next to their token on the table and do that for each one. And then close Discord. And
Okay.
then I make a copy of the table. So that's this turn. And then on the new copy, I set that to the correct turn number. So I increment it by one. If it's turn zero, then now it's turn one, and then so on and
Sure.
so forth. And then I can just look at their orders for the turn next to their token and draw, make measurements or whatever,
Yeah.
um, or just move them straight up right there.
Right. If there's no conflict, just moving them where they're going.
Yeah,
Yep.
just moving where they're
Okay.
going.
And then once you've got that done, create a fresh you create a fresh look without all those orders in there, I imagine.
Yeah, well, yeah. Basically, I delete the orders as I process. So if I've
Right.
processed it, I
Perfect. Yeah.
delete their orders.
So that's how you know that that one's done, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. And then use any ChatGPT tools or anything like that? I know some people have strong opinions on it, but we might as well have open conversations. I've tried it
Just
out myself, so there's no that's
yeah, no, just for scripting and programming
scripting
questions.
and programming. Okay.
And I use Cursor, which
You
is
use Cursor.
yeah, Cursor is designed for programming.
Yeah, so that's helps you with the helps you create all the locking systems that will lock all the players on the submarine. Okay, so we got it.
Yeah.
What's your philosophy of screenshots? Are you a big wide open screenshot show more, or do you keep it really tight?
Um, I set the I set the line of sight for the character by token.
Okay.
And so when you click on the token, it will Foundry has like really cool line of sight features that it will just automatically black out what they.
You've demoed that on the Discord, yeah. Okay, so you'll use more of a philosophy of line of sight is what you're looking at.
Yeah, and I also get really lazy that I've found a module that has a little like time of day, like it's got a little thing you can move around the screen that says like what time it is, and it shows like where the sun is in the sky and like if
Right.
it's a full moon tonight and like the date. And so I put that in the screenshot as well. So like if I wanted to, I didn't even have to like type in the that information in Discord and copy and paste it a million times.
Oh,
The
that's interesting.
screenshot has the time, the weather,
Yeah,
what they can see.
that's interesting. I get you. Get it. Yeah, yeah. And in terms of developing your own combat system, is that well? Let me take a step back of research, looking at setting up player kind of orders of battle, how many players you have, your command structure,
Mhm.
recruiting players, putting the game on, after action review. Which part of that really lights you up? What's your favorite part of Umpire?
I think the favorite part is when you have a good spectator, like when you draw a good spectator crowd, or at least a couple
Mhm.
really engaged spectators, is pretty cool. Um, I also really like the just seeing like the ideas and the creativity that comes out of some people, like out of the natural, like the emergent gameplay that comes out of the situation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
fun to see how creative people can get. So I like that
yeah,
too. Um, I think those are the big ones.
yeah. Great. And if a spectator catches the creative emergent gameplay, and that's you got everything you need right there, right in that spectator
Yeah.
channel. That's great. So you burst onto the scene with a high level of technical knowledge, and like right off the bat, you were demonstrating things to the community, which was fantastic. Other umpires have different skills. What advice would you give to a new umpire coming on the scene? Because we have many coming in now, and they're looking for advice from folks like yourself. What advice would you give them?
Keep it simple where you can, um, especially if speed is of the essence. But you should always try to automate what you can, like where you can. Like if you've got a manual process that is very easy, like if it's the same thing over and over and over and over again, consider looking into AI chat agents to ask them to write a script that automates that. So you don't have to be a
Okay,
programmer necessarily to do this. Like some of the scripts are so basic that you could get what you needed from ChatGPT.
that's very
So
interesting. Yeah. So if there's that you something you're doing over and over again, just ask ChatGPT, GPT, or whatever your chosen AI agent is, to say, "How do I automate that?" and they'll walk you through it.
yeah, and I don't know how scripting works in Tabletop Simulator, but I know that with Cursor, I and Foundry, I can just they make it really easy for you to create your own systems and share them and
Yeah,
distribute them.
yeah,
And so with Cursor, I can make changes to the file like on the fly. Like it's very smart AI for as far as
yeah. Right.
like scripting goes. And you can get something like, and Foundry's so versatile, you can set up attributes that's like this unit has food and ammo and morale, whatever, whatever, whatever. And in the context of the AI, you can say, hey, make me a script that subtracts 1 day's worth of food from any
Right,
select.
right, right.
And then you literally just drag select the army, hit the macro, and then it will automatically
Just all the values. Yeah.
subtract all the values from all the units.
Okay. Well, maybe you'll get from this conversation some folks wanting to have a look at Foundry, and you get a group. I think even James famously said he did his first games on Microsoft Paint. I mean, so I mean, there's no need to do tabletop simulator. Is just what we've all kind of created a lot of modules in. So that's where you go get modules. But it certainly is not the only place you can do it. I do games live on a table, and then I'll take a photo of it. So there's lots of ways you can do it, and Foundry certainly is a valid option. Wade, thank you so much. You have to come back again, and as you dream up your next real life idea, we need to make sure that we get the umpires here excited about it.
Yeah.
I will come to your next event with a little bit of with it not being on an Easter holiday, of course.
Yeah.
And then I think the community can support something that's really exciting with what you're doing with the Mudcrab spirit. So that's great stuff. And all the Foundry work you're doing, the umpiring you're doing, we're really glad to have you in the community. And thanks so much for coming on today.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm very glad to be a part of the community. It's a very wholesome, with the cesspool that is the internet. It is a very wholesome conclave of
The
like-minded
wholesome
people.
conclave. I agree with that.
Yeah, it's refreshing to see like that level of collaboration and just friendliness. And so I'm just excited to be a part of it. I don't have a lot of time to engage with it. Sometimes I get really
Sure.
busy. I don't do a lot of cross collaboration, but or nor do I play live games very often. I just don't have the time. That's why I love the play by post so much. But
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
glad to be part of the community. I'm really thankful that you invited me here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. We'll talk to you soon.